Hey, Soul Questers. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of a Soul's Quest podcast. I'm your hostess, Jessie, and this is my co-host, Omar, and my husband, Omar.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Oh, yeah.
How are you?
I'm good.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. What was that all about?
I don't know. I just feel like starting in a silly manner today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're silly every time.
Yeah, I'm silly.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all.
Keeps you youthful.
That's right. I feel like I'm 12 inside.
But all this gray hair throws that all out the window.
No. Don't let the hair confuse
The gray hair.
Yeah,
the gray.
I'm still a 12-year-old inside.
Have you ever thought about like doing like the Just for Men thing or anything?
Nah.
Yeah.
Not even close.
You've never mentioned it, but I wonder if you've ever like, maybe Jessie does it. Not for my beard. I don't do it for my beard. I dye my roots.
Nope.
I don't want it to be confused.
Not at all. Not at all. I like it all natural.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't
like
like
it.
see, like
I
I don't
like
like the straight lines across.
No, I know.
I'm not like that.
Yeah.
Just like it like this. I think it's nice.
Natural.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like, no, I'm good.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So what are we talking about today?
I don't know. You're the one that comes up with the topics and stuff. You just invite me. I'm your co-host.
I know. Co-host means you're helping me to host.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I do. That's my role. Listen, I know my role. The brony. So what are we talking about?
Okay. So seriously, I do want to talk about status anxiety.
Okay. Shout out to the School of Life.
Yeah. We did get that topic from the School of Life.
And Alain de Botton. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
If you haven't watched his video on status anxiety, it's really, really good. Not that I want to promote the School of Life because they don't need it, but
no, but it's a good source.
But it is a good source. We love the School of Life actually, so it is a good source. But I want to talk about status anxiety because I think it's really, really relevant in today's world.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure,
people are super stressed out, under a tremendous amount of pressure. There's this need to get ahead, a need to get ahead in ways that you're hurting other people, even. And I think that. I don't know. It's just a
so
topic.
So your suspicion is suspicion, right? It's a suspect.
You suspect?
Yes, that's what I meant. I couldn't get it out.
That's okay.
Sorry. That's yeah. So that's what you think the problem is. A lot of our issues of anxiety has to do with status.
Societal, yeah, definitely. Societal pressures, the expectations that society has put out there, and I mean that very simply. Like people, you look at magazines like. For example, People magazine.
Yeah.
The first thing that you do when you open up People magazine, the first couple of pages are highlights of all of the superstars and how glamorous they look and the products that they use on their face to look perfect and the beautiful, shapely, Jennifer Lopez bodies and the big butts and the boobs and everything. And a lot of women strive to be that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm just saying it's a true story. Yeah. So, and I think that that's a lot of pressure sometimes because what is enough then? Because can you ever strive to that? I mean, these people have millions and millions of dollars. Like, do we normal people? I don't have millions of dollars to spend on making myself perfect, nor do I want to spend my money on that. Yeah. But there is that pressure to sort of conform.
Yeah. There is. And so, but I like diving a little bit deeper than that, right? Because I think that's always been there. There's always been that class that everybody's always striving.
And this is why you're my co-host.
To be like,
bring it.
Okay. There's always been that class, that group of people that everybody's try to strive to be like, the bourgeoisie and the aristocrats and that upper class people. That's always been there, even with the all caste systems, where there were always those type of people. I think the more of the problem actually comes from, I think, the way that our society pushes certain ideas, right? Because those people, okay, yeah, they're out there now. They're they're superstars, whatever, But then everybody in the middle is competing now for some level of relevancy in the world, right?
Right.
And then I think that's more problematic than that elite group of people, you know?
I would agree.
And the reason why I think that is because, you know, you work at a you know, high level education institution. You know, I worked at nonprofits and in those type of worlds. And there's a certain level of, you know, education system. There's a certain level of status that's also associated in those groups. You know, the degrees, you know, the titles, the positions that people hold, and the, you know, and that idea of the superiority over somebody else. You know, that thing at the basic level of human existence, you know, I think that's a reality that's always been there. So we're always competing, you know, so who's going to get the first bite of the bison, you know,
Right.
who's going to get the sure end of the stick at the end. But, you know, that's natural. I think that's a natural thing that happens. What needs to shift, I think, and not that needs to shift, but I think it's the individual that needs to recognize that. You know what I mean?
I think I understand what you're saying.
Because the problem is that the competition and all that stuff is going to be there, right? On how and where those standards are going to be set. It's driven by culture, and culture it's something that is either a combination of people wanting certain things or the current morality at the time, you know. At one point the status was being pious, you know, at another was to be a warrior. It changes from society to society, you know. The problem that I think that we see now is that the current models that we have to give us that sense of status kind of like all over the place. There's so many, you know, and they all are measured financially. That makes us hard to compare and contrast and figure out what we need or who do we model our lives after. You know, that's the part that's interesting, and I think that's a more problematic portion than looking at the upper class of individuals. Because again, if you look at that group of people, there's only like 1 or 2% of people in population in the world that could ever achieve that. Maybe 1, maybe 2%, if that. So everybody else, it's constantly striving to fill those spots and be to the top in their respective areas. You know, there's a certain hierarchy that always works in groups. You know, you see it in gangs, a certain hierarchy. You know, you see it. I think that is almost like it's a human thing to have those hierarchies, right? Now, for our purposes, for the individual gets to choose, in my opinion, like you get to choose which status, which level you want to stay at, and whether or not you're okay. But most people are not okay because they're not measuring based on their things. They're on what their needs are. Based on what,
when you say their things, you mean based on that. So give me an example. Based on what?
Okay, so for instance, for me, but like an idea of my status is, you know, I want to be recognized for what I do, and be able to have my opinion heard. Right. Somebody giving me a title or telling me that I'm this, oh, you're this, you're that, you're great, doesn't really mean anything if I can't express the way that I feel or have my ideas validated or at least discussed. You know, so I don't care about the praise. Doesn't mean anything to me. But I want to be able to be acknowledged when I'm bringing something up to the table. And be like, okay, this is a valid point. Unfortunately, we can't do this right now, but at least listen and have a discussion about it, right?
So that makes you feel like you're valued.
That you have
you're contributing something
that
to
you belong to something, that you're listening to. So, but me having gold chains or dressing a certain way or looking for that appearance stuff doesn't really mean much. It just doesn't mean as much to me as it might mean to somebody else.
Right.
But that's just me. I'm not trying to be like humble or better or nothing. It's just that you have to be able to, in order to not have that anxiety of status, you know, You have to know your measurements of it, your own individual measurements. Right now, don't get me wrong, I don't want to rent from somebody, and I don't want to, and I want to be able to have my own, my house, my independence, my freedom, the things that would allow me to do the things that I would like to do, right? But I don't want to live in a shack, and I don't want to live in the streets.
Yeah, but a lot of people would say that the way that we're trying to accomplish that, or the way that we're accomplishing that, is not a level of, like, some people would frown upon that.
Well, yeah, but again, it's like
because it's not what
because
they
I don't
would
have
do.
because I don't have a $500,000 home, or because I don't drive like a Ferrari instead of a pickup truck.
Right. You don't have a graduate degree, or you don't. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, it's like that goes to, as an individual, how do you measure?
But I think that people who don't have that, for example, if we had a different frame of mind or a different mindset, we might be thinking, God, it would be nice to have a $500,000 house. Like, what we need to do that. And that's that's status anxiety.
Yeah,
because you're not living up to that
potential. And it's like those kids, right? They have a lot of the kids are quote unquote what do you call them? They call them genius, and they have high IQ, and a lot of them because they're in that track, and if they have any small failure, they can't handle that. It's because in their perception, their status of being smart just got knocked down a little bit, right? That's one way. I mean, if you look at somebody in the hood, right? One of the big fights that people used to always get in the hood is because somebody stepped on my shoes and they're just a little dirty, because my status of being respected has been violated, and that's my sense of being, and somebody stepped on my shoes, and people have lost their lives on both of those things, right? Just that there have been geniuses that committed suicide because they failed at one thing, and people have killed other people because they accidentally stepped on someone's shoes. That's all the idea of, I this is who I am, and anything below that, it makes me look less than
right. So they can't even appear that, and that's the anxiety. Is that so for example, I'm pursuing a degree. If I don't do well on the exams that I need to become what most people would refer to as all but dissertation. Yep. Then I could potentially be like, I'm a loser. I'm not smart. I'm not, I'm a nobody. I should have done better. I could have done a lot of things. But so that's a level of anxiety that I would be, especially if I'm comparing myself to other people in my program. Yep. Because I should be able to do this. I should be able to.
And in those situations, it's hard because it is kind of like a competition. You know what I mean?
Sort of.
It's sort of like a competition.
To think of it that way, but I get that.
The education, let's think about it. The education system is really a ciphering system to determine who belongs where. That's really what it is. What role are people going to play in society? And he ciphers 20% for the people who are going to have careers and big professions and all that stuff. Everybody else are pretty much going to be dispersed into being workers and all that stuff. That's what it's meant for, right? So when you're comparing yourself to someone, right, you always need models. You need a model. You need a standard in which you need to kind of like strive for. And those models depend basically on your environment, and those models are created by culture. Now, culture has a lot of different models, but there's always like the fluctuation in which model is stronger than the other. Right? In the past, it was piety. Now it's the way that I look, my financial success, those type of things. So it all fluctuates. But at the end of the day, once everything is said and done, the only person responsible for a level of a sense of being, right? And that you feel like you're a human being, right, instead of an animal that is constantly competing for the attractions of others. And I say that very clear because the distinction between an animal and us is that we're able to think, we're able to rationalize, and we're able to make choices right? Based on what in our understanding. So an animal truly just reacts to a situation. I have to eat, and I'm going to eat first, and I'm going to fight whoever it is. Right? I want to procreate, and I don't care who it is. I'm going to fight whoever just to get to that status. The lion needs that status. Without that status, that lion will not eat. Because he won't have a pride to go and chase for their food, because lions don't hunt. They secure things. That's what they do. But if a lion is not there and is not able to constantly challenge the people that are coming after him, that guy, he's going to be deposed, and somebody else is going to take his place.
He's ousted.
But those are animals, right? We human beings, as far as we know, are the only creature that could rationalize things and then make sense of stuff and then act accordingly. Right. So what you think about anxiety is that we haven't really evolved to the point in which we understand that the most important thing, it's about manifesting the gifts and the talents that the universe has given us into the world. Instead, what we're doing is behaving like animals, right? And looking at our status, because you see it everywhere, right? You see it with politicians, you see it in nonprofits, you see it in business. Everybody's always looking for the optics, the way that something looks, right? Look what a good boy am I. Look how well we're doing something. Nobody admits when they make a mistake, because that cuts down their status. Nobody is able to put down their guard and communicate with other person, because that lowers their status. Right? So when you're looking at that, it's like, when you're looking at the idea of status anxiety, it's because I don't think most people haven't been able to evolve. And I'm saying that I'm evolved, because I have status anxiety too in certain areas. Like I said, I don't want to live in a shack. I already did that. I don't want to live there no more. Right?
Been there, done that.
Been there, done that. I don't want to take a cold shower, because been there, done that.
No,
don't want to do that.
Out of a what do you call those? A pail?
Out of a pail. And I don't want to do that anymore. I want to live with electricity, because it's not fun doing your homework with a candlelight. If you ever done that.
It's not fun not having electricity when it's 100 degrees outside.
There you go too. So there's certain things that, for comfort that I will like, and that's a status that most people say, well, you're an elitist, I much rather eat, in a restaurant than eat McDonald's. I'm sorry. I just don't want to eat McDonald's.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
So when you look at those things, it's like, we have to be able to understand ourselves, understand society, and understand that it is our responsibility to evolve, right? So instead of looking at around and being, I have to be the top alpha and the dog and the alpha male or the alpha female and that person to get everything that I want and forget everybody else, right? That's a weight of being, a competitive weight of being that has its place. And you need to be able to do that to a certain point. But on the other hand, you also have to be aware that, yes, you might behave like that, but you have to do it not because you want to show everybody else that you are at this level, but because this is what you really want and your comfort. Like most people, right? Like, and we've known some millionaires, right? You will never guess
that they were millionaires.
That were never millionaires. Never. In wildest dream is like, really? Some of the most humble, non-pretentious people that you will ever meet.
Yeah.
Living regular, average lives. But doing the things that they want to do.
Right.
And money, it's only the accessibility that they had because they focus on how they wanted to live.
Right. And I think part of that is the fact that if they had status anxiety, which I'm sure that they did because we all do, that they also didn't just think about themselves. They wanted to bring others with them to the top. You were talking about, when we were talking earlier, you were talking about Queen Latifah's UNITY.
Yes.
Like bringing people together to accomplish something together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Self-respect, you know, and the spectrum.
There's a lot to be said for that, for engaging people and bringing them with you on this path or this journey and allowing people to grow that way, right? Or encourage their growth.
See, like I know of a person who's a millionaire. He's one of the most humble people that I'm most humble, down to earth. You can have a conversation about everything and has worked in some of the highest industries in the world. Just talking, having a beer, shooting the shit, just talking, like, and not saying I'm better than you or anything like that, which is what you see right now in our culture. You know, you see that that status of money and power and prestige and material things, you know, as the way to validate existence. You know,
a lot of people
but then you see other people, you know, like I think of my grandmother who lived to be 112, more than a lot of these people will live, longer than a lot of people who ever lived.
Right.
Every afternoon, she will go grab a chair, sit underneath her mango tree with a pipe and tobacco on, enjoying that little moment. Just her. If I went to bother her, no, go play somewhere. That was her time. You know, she got up in the morning, did all her things. Middle of the afternoon, that's what she did. Right there, getting the breeze. Right? And she lived her life. And she you know, she didn't have that thing. You know, and there's a lot of people that live like that. You know, so the question really for people is that. It's like, do you want to, and I think also that this has to do with at different ages and where we are in the stages that we are in life, you know, because when you're young, you want to pursue things and that's the raw thing, that youthful, you know, vibrant life, okay. You know, it's okay. You know, you got the sexual impulses, you got the impulse to master and all that stuff, you know. But as we begin to get older and that begins to kind of like dissipate and it begins to lose
your perspectives change.
Your perspective change.
What's important, your priorities change.
And what's important change, you know. And it's all based on who has sway also, in who are the loudest voices in the room, you know. And primarily in our loudest voices in our society right now is social media, you know, that comparison fight between each other and go from there. Yeah. It's
interesting though, because I think it's something that really causes people a lot of grief and a lot of questioning themselves. What am I doing? Like, you know, I'm not doing enough. Sometimes I hear people say that they work, you know, 5, 6 days, 7 days a week. They don't stop, you know, get up early, go to bed. I mean, it's just,
you know, I'll tell you something that's interesting, right? So, because everybody talks about, oh, this place is better than this one. Again, like the status thing. Oh, these people are better than this. People are better than that, right? So you and I have been kind of like had the privilege to travel quite a bit in the last few years, right? And gone to different cities, a couple of different countries, right? And one of the things that I say to you is like, they all look the same.
You do say that,
right? The cities, the people, they all look the same. Everybody dresses the same way, and the people that say I'm just my own person, I'm completely different, I'm this and that and the other. You dress like everybody else, you talk like everybody else. You know, everybody has Louis Vuitton, everybody has all this stuff, which is great. Or you want to do your thing, right? But there's a point in which you try to manifest yourself so much according to that status that you become that status and you start looking like everybody else. Well, when we went to Vegas, I'm like, oh my God, everybody looks the same.
Yeah.
You know,
that's interesting.
Everybody looks the same and all the places looks the same. You know, the only thing that really changes is like the topography, like and that's the part that I like, because it's like, oh, this is different. But you could find a Little Scissors anywhere. You could find a Applebee's, a Outback. And there's very few places in between that really have the essence of that area, you know, because everything looks the same.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think that you're right. I think that people strive so hard and try so hard to do things that at the end of the day, everybody just blends together and they all look the same.
Yeah. Because again, it's like, let's say you move into 2 examples, and I know we have to finish. So the first example is like when you look at urban culture, right? You know, like particularly the females, because I'm disappointed with the female rappers. Like I don't see a Queen Latifah, and I don't see like an MC Light, you know, even Salt and Pepper. You don't see that type of stuff, right? You see all those rappers talking about the same thing. They're the best in bed. And again, it's a criticism because they set a standard, right? And this is a standard that young people listen to, you know, and that's a status that they strive to be, you know. I mean, a person, we have responsibilities as people because we're models for generations before and after us, you know. So you have to be cognizant that yes, it is okay to be your own individual self, but you have to make sure that you look at the models and why is it that you're looking for that status? Are you looking for that status because you want to fit that status quo?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or because you really want to bring out truly what's inside of you? You know? There's a lot of thinking that's involved with that.
Yeah. And that's a great way to end.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good. Thanks so much for joining us today. Hopefully, if you like this video, actually, we'd like you to like and subscribe to our channel. Check out all of our content on other social media outlets as well. And don't forget to check out our website, asoulsquest.com.